What do you say?
Well, when it comes to scandals, when it comes to kind of unconventional behavior, Republicans are a lot more likely to kind of circle the wagons around their party than Democrats are around members of their party. Now, if you look at two scandals that have happened in the last couple months, the last year, blackface and Me Too allegations, Republicans are about twice as likely as Democrats, this is according to a Morning Consult poll, about twice as likely as Democrats to still vote for a politician that's worn blackface, and they're almost 3 times as likely as Democrats to say the same thing about a politician that's facing Me Too allegations. So for me, taking a step back from this poll, Republicans are a lot more accepting, they're a lot more forgiving of a lot of these scandals that are happening.
Could it be the nature of the scandals, though? Because the scandals have to do with racism or sexism, they're more forgiving. What if the scandal had to do with somebody who was, I don't know, attacking evangelical Christianity, perhaps? Like, would Republicans then be willing to say, oh, that doesn't mean anything, he just maligned Jesus?
Oh, absolutely not. Evangelicals make up a huge, huge share of the Republican base. They're a key component of the Trump's fans. So, yes, very much so. It depends on the scandal.
I think we'd see it. So what do you got to say about this?
Yeah, so I think he's been an incredibly difficult president for the press to cover. He's unorthodox in a whole number of ways, but particularly his personal behavior. And I think that Joanna's absolutely right that Republicans are incredibly forgiving. And I think in part because they view a lot of the people that are criticizing him as sort of natural enemies, whether it's the press, whether it's Democratic politicians. And so they, from the very beginning of his presidency have rallied around him.
Now, Dan, the other question I have to ask you here is, does it even really matter? All right, this standard question, is this something that voters, is it an indicator of how voters would choose to perform in an election that's 2 years away?
This is, the time question that we always ask, like, how much does this matter for the 2020 election and Trump's reelection chances? And his baseline of support at 40%, give or take a couple points, has been incredibly stable and incredibly solid, and we haven't really seen much evidence of that shifting. Now he's gonna pull that up a little bit, unless there's a third-party candidate in the race. He's gonna need at least 44, 45%, and we'll see if he can do it.
So, Joanna, independents we saw here, 36% say lower standard, 32% say higher, and 23 say about the same. We also know that independents sometimes are not always so independent. They lean conservative or Republican or Democrat. This looks like the independents are awash. I mean, like that. It feels like there hasn't been that much of a shift here.
Yeah, and taking something that Dan said, like the question behind this question is, how is he treated? Is basically, and the question behind that is, how is the media treating him? Trump has done a very good job of setting up some sort of war between him and the media. And what we're seeing here is that independents are right in the middle of it. That said, Dan is right that a base of only 40% isn't going to win a presidency. So he needs to expand his base a little bit more.
This is something I think he actually is really good at as a politician, is that I think Donald Trump understands choices are made comparatively. And so he keeps having to set up even a straw man. He's got to set up some opponent that he can judge. He can be judged against that opponent. So it's not always about him versus whatever choice he made. It's him versus the other opponent that he set up. Now, we'll see what happens when there's a real life flesh and blood, electoral choice for people to make. But he's been pretty effective at whether it was President Obama, Secretary Hillary Clinton, the news media. He is always kind of pushing us to say, it's not me, it's those guys, it's the other those guys.
He's a pugilist. He loves it. He loves to fight.
I know. All right, we got a lot more coming up. Still ahead, we look at the president's road to re-election. That's next on What America's Thinking.